Have you ever wondered what really happens behind the palace walls when no one is watching? What secrets do the youngest royals carry in their hearts? And what happens when a child's truth threatens the perfect royal picture? In a world where everything is rehearsed and carefully crafted, one small voice broke the silence, unraveling the illusion of harmony within the British royal family. It all began when Prince George, the future king, realized something deeply unsettling. Buckingham Palace, known for tradition, honor, and unity, suddenly felt unfamiliar to him. A place he once trusted started to shift before his eyes, and the person behind that shift was someone he was taught to respect: Queen Camilla. George discovered that Camilla had been quietly working to shine the royal spotlight more on her own grandchildren, leaving his sister, Princess Charlotte, in the shadows. For a boy raised to value fairness and family, the betrayal cut deep. His tears, shared with his mother Catherine, weren't just a reaction. They were a signal that the family was changing and that Charlotte needed protecting. It was a heartbreaking moment, but also the beginning of something powerful. George and Catherine began to see the signs they had ignored before. And then came the moment that no one expected. During a relaxed shoot for a family documentary at Kensington Palace, the youngest of the Wales children, Prince Louis, was asked a simple question about his sister. He answered with a truth no one was prepared for. "I don't like when Granny Camilla made her cry." The room fell completely silent. Cameras kept rolling, but no one knew what to say. That one sentence exposed something raw and real. It was like a thread had been pulled loose, unraveling the tightly knit image of a happy royal family. Behind the smiles and official photos, something painful had been hiding. The palace panicked. Public relations advisors rushed to discuss whether they should edit it out. But once a child speaks the truth, it's hard to unhear it. That one innocent remark from Louis triggered conversations across the world about what was really happening behind the royal curtains. It turns out, Louis wasn't the only one who had felt something was off. That comment opened the door for deeper stories to surface, especially one involving a royal portrait session. Everyone was gathered, dressed in their best, photographers snapping away. Charlotte, being young and restless, fidgeted like any child would. That's when Camilla, with a sharp tone, said, "Stand still and stop acting spoiled." She didn't raise her voice, but her words stung. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears as she ran to her mother's arms. The session continued as if nothing had happened, but for Charlotte, everything had changed. That night, she didn't ask for her bedtime story. She barely spoke. The emotional bruise left behind wasn't visible, but it was real. It was enough for William and Kate to quietly draw a line. From that day forward, Camilla was never alone with the children. Every meeting was supervised, every moment calculated to protect Charlotte and her brothers from further harm. This wasn't about public statements or dramatic fallout. It was about two parents making quiet decisions to shield their children. William, calm but deeply shaken, remembered his own mother's efforts to protect him. He chose to follow Diana's path, not by fighting publicly, but by drawing private boundaries. Kate, equally disturbed by what had happened, became a steady guard for her children's emotional safety. No press release was issued. No interviews were given. But insiders noticed the changes. The children were rarely seen near Camilla anymore, and when they were, Kate was always just a step behind. Staff received new instructions. If Camilla was around, someone from the family had to be, too. The emotional safety of the children became non-negotiable. Then came another subtle yet telling moment at a Christmas carol event. When someone casually asked if Camilla played games with the children during the holidays, Louis softly replied, "Not really." Charlotte said nothing. She clutched her dress tightly and looked down. Her silence was louder than any statement. Kate reached for her hand, and William's jaw tightened. They knew. This wasn't a one-time issue. This was a pattern. Later that evening, as the family left quietly, Kate confided to someone close that Charlotte always remembers. And that's what struck them the most. Children don't forget how people make them feel. Their little hearts hold onto moments longer than we realize. Eventually, William and Kate gently opened the door for their children to talk about their feelings. In a private moment, Charlotte finally spoke. "She grabbed me too hard and I cried," she said. Louis nodded, and George added that he had asked Camilla to stop, but she didn't. These were not dramatic accusations. They were quiet memories. But they were enough. William felt his heart break. He didn't need more proof. He didn't need confrontation. He and Kate had already made up their minds. Camilla's access to their children would remain limited. Every visit would be planned. Every interaction noted. Not out of vengeance, but out of protection. They even documented it privately. Not to accuse, but to ensure nothing would be ignored again. William later had a private talk with King Charles. There was no shouting. No threats. He simply explained that his responsibility was to his children. He wasn't trying to punish anyone, but Charlotte's emotional well-being came first. Charles listened. He understood. But he also felt trapped. He loved his wife, but he also saw the hurt in his grandchildren's eyes. He began to step back quietly, watching the distance grow between Camilla and the younger royals. And as that distance grew, another name began to echo in the palace again: Diana. Her parenting style, her tenderness, her ability to connect, these became the guiding light for William and Kate. They started telling their children stories about their grandmother, not just as a royal, but as a person who listened and cared. That legacy became a shield and a map. The difference in parenting was clear. Camilla believed in discipline and structure. She thought tough love would prepare the children for royal life. But William and Kate believed in emotional connection, in talking openly, and in comforting their children when they hurt. To them, emotions weren't signs of weakness. They were signs of trust. Over time, the children leaned into their parents' warmth and backed away from Camilla's coldness. It wasn't defiance. It was instinct. And as they did, Camilla began to feel the change. She told her friends she never meant to hurt anyone, that she thought she was helping. But she didn't understand that this new royal generation was different. The rules had changed. Camilla found herself more and more alone. Her role at public events remained, but behind the scenes, her interactions with the children were rare. Even Charles, though supportive, became quieter around her. He saw the emotional wall forming and didn't know how to bring it down. Meanwhile, the public started picking up on these changes. When Louis's words about Charlotte crying went viral, the internet exploded. Hashtags supporting Charlotte trended globally. People compared old photos of Diana with current ones of Camilla, and the differences weren't just visual, they were emotional. The public began siding with William and Kate, praising their emotional intelligence and protective parenting. The palace stayed silent, hoping the storm would pass. But it didn't. Silence only made the questions louder. Still, William and Kate never responded with drama. They stayed calm and focused. Behind the scenes, they made every decision with care. Catherine continued to take notes, not for scandal, but to ensure no detail was forgotten. William met with Charles again, this time with more resolve. There was no turning back. The rules in their home had changed for good. Camilla's role was formal, not personal. The emotional bond was gone. Publicly, everything seemed polished. But those who watched closely could see the tension. Charles stood between his wife and his son, physically and emotionally. The children clung more to their parents. Camilla's smiles looked more forced. The divide had become undeniable. And what began as one child's honest comment had turned into something much bigger. The royal family, long defined by image and control, was now being reshaped by love and truth. William and Kate were no longer just heirs. They were leaders of a new emotional standard. Diana's influence was alive, not just in memory but in practice. The monarchy had shifted. People cared less about crowns and titles and more about feelings, connection, and doing what's right. Charlotte, once sidelined, now stood quietly protected by those who loved her most. And that protection, that fierce and silent loyalty, might just be what carries the crown into a new kind of future. If this story moved you and you believe in kindness, truth, and family above all else, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real stories from behind the palace gates.